Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to continue on with Entrelac in the round after you finish your base triangles or beginning triangles. So here is our sock cuff, and the cast on is here, and then we've made these triangles. And I've done the same thing on my sample. I only have 6 triangles on my sample. I have a bunch more on the sock, but that's irrelevant. So what I want to show you is here's the cast on edge, and here it is on the sock. And then we have a column of stitches going up one side of the triangle, and then we're going across the rows on the other side of the triangle. And here it's been joined already to the next section, but here they're live stitches. So here's the side of the triangle that corresponds to this side where we have the column of stitches, and then the other side is live stitches that we're going to be getting rid of in this section. Here's our cast on edge. So let's look at what happened at the end of the round. So we started here with our cast on, and we ended here, and there's a little gap there, and really that triangle, when we take all the needles out because we've finished the knitting, will relax and be there, and these two pieces will be in the same place. So what I like to do is just tie a little overhand knot in them, not even a double one, just a little knot, and that makes it kind of look tidier to me. And we're going to cut this color off. We're going to start knitting up here on the next row. So I'm going to take this color off because I'm changing colors, but also because I'm down here and I want to start up here. So even if I'm not changing colors, I cut the yarns on each section. So I'm going to show you how to do this turning and knitting and purling, and then I'll show you how to do it with knitting backwards. But to start, I don't know how to do that from the right side. We have to start these first row rectangles on the wrong side by picking up and purling stitches here. And I guess I could just go with a crochet hook if you didn't want to turn. Actually, we could just go with the crochet hook if you didn't want to turn, and we would just go in that first behind 2 strands. I start right up next to the needle, pull up 1, and then go under the next 2 strands. Make sure you use the ball of yarn and not the tail. Pull up another. Do you see what I did there? I'm kind of doing it lefty like I would be knitting backwards. So pull up another one. But anyway, I don't do it this way because I just don't. But if you really don't want to turn and look at the back of your work ever, you could. I do this with knitting needles, picking up and purling. And so it's kind of like picking up and knitting, but you got the wrong side facing you. So remember, here's where our ends are, and then we're going to go to the top of the triangle right next to that. So here's the long column of stitches. And to pick up and purl, we put our needle in from the right side of the work, which is away from us, towards us. Okay? And then we get to wrap the yarn around it, and whatever way you can do this, and pull it through. And that's our first picked up and purled stitch. So I'm just going to bring my tail over here to the wrong side, get it out of the way. Okay? Then I'm going to go under the next, and that's a slip stitch. See, I'm going under the next 2 strands of yarn. That's a slip stitch from the edge. And I wrap my yarn and pull it through. And again, you can use a crochet hook or whatever you want to get this done. I want to pick up 5 stitches because remember, all of our rectangles and like our beginning triangles are going to be 5 stitches. Now here, when I get all the way to the end, I don't have one more slipped stitch because if you remember, I started with a double strand of yarn and I knit that first stitch instead of slipping it, so I don't have an actual slip stitch. So I'm just going to go under and pull up one more wherever I can that kind of looks tidy. So let me turn it to the right side again, and before you start working, just check, does that look tidy? And I think it does. There's a little blip there. There's going to be a blip there somehow. If you look at my original one at the very first beginning of the round, there's a little blip there too. You can tie that in when you weave in your ends if you don't like it. So okay, so now we picked up and purled, and then we turned. Get rid of all your tails if you have to. Again, you can be doing this on double points, circulars, 2 circulars, whatever you like. So now we're going to start. We're basically going to be doing similar to what we were doing before, only we don't make more stitches on each row because we already have 5. So what we're going to do is first just slip 1 and knit across. Okay, remember that first stitch is our tail, so you can tug it if you need to tighten it up. And then we're going to turn, and we're going to slip 1. Remember I said when I do this I slip knitwise on the knit side and purlwise on the purl side. That's just how I do it. And now I'm going to purl. I'm not going to purl the last stitch though. When I get to the last stitch, I'm going to join it to the first stitch that's left over from the previous triangle. So I'm going to join that by purling 2 together. Again, that's my tail. Tug on the tails to tighten them up. And then I'm going to turn. Notice that I'm knitting with the needle that's already attached to my work. Okay, so now, you know, same thing applies here. I just did a slip 1, knit across, slip 1, purl across, and then we'll purl 2 together. If I don't want to turn, I can slip 1, knit across, okay, and then I can go backwards like we did before. Same process of knitting backwards. I'm just untangling all my tails and yarn here. That's one of the things that's a little frustrating on this for some people. You get all these tails and yarns. You can cut them shorter, weave them in as you go if you want. But anyway, I'm just going to do my backwards knitting. Sometimes I forget which way to wrap it. Do my backwards knitting. Now when I get to the end, remember I'm going to join 2, so I'm going to go through those 2 stitches together and backwards knit them together instead of purling them together. Okay, so see, that works just pretty much the same. And then slip 1, knit 1. If you ever do find that you had wrapped one wrong when you were knitting backwards, it's okay. Just knit through the back loop of it if you need to not twist it. The whole point is just not to twist our stitches. So here I am going back and forth, and I'm going to keep going until all of these stitches on the triangle are used up. So I'll continue doing it with knitting backwards just because why not? I could use some practice at this. It's not something I do frequently or hardly ever. As I said, a lot of times I just knit these and turn. But it's fun to try some new things sometimes. So see, I'm going to go all the way back and forth and always doing that backwards knit 2 together. I just want to show you one thing before I stop and let you catch up. See, don't worry about that little piece of the other color is going to show. If you look at my sample here, it shows. That's when you pick up stitches, it makes a little mark, and when you join stitches in the decreases, sometimes it makes a little mark showing. So don't worry about that at all. It's just part of the process in the texture of Entrelac. I know sometimes we worry about these little things if we're not sure we're doing something right, but that's not a problem. Okay, so let me finish this rectangle, come back and show you how to do the second rectangle and then, you know, the third and fourth and so forth. Alright, so I just finished this little rectangle, see, and the stitch I just did was right here. I did a backwards knit 2 together to join that last stitch of my triangle to the last stitch of my rectangle. If you were going back and forth, it would have been a purl 2 together. So here I am, and I'm at the top of a triangle again. So if I can figure out how to pick up and purl to go from here to here without turning, I can use a crochet hook and get up 5 stitches there. As I said, it's not something that I am good at or anything, so I turn. Even if I was going to knit backwards on the whole thing, I would turn on this, and I'm going to pick up 5 stitches here. So starting right at the beginning, I go under those 2 strands and purl up 1. So you go under the 2 strands of the next slip stitch, 2, It doesn't feel right, so I'm going to take it out and start over. 2, and don't pay attention to how I'm holding the yarn and wrapping it around my finger like that. That's just how I tension my yarn that I learned from my grandmother. You can do this however you hold the yarn and needles. The whole idea is to just pull up 1, 2, 3. Is that one? No, that's the last one from that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go into that last strand right there. And I always go into 2 strands because it's hard to not stretch it out of shape if you just go into 1. So I'm going to have trouble pulling that through, I can tell right away. So I'm going to get my little helper crochet hook and pull it through and then pop it on my knitting needle. Okay, and now we turn. And you can continue turning back and forth to do the knit 4, purl, purl 2 together, or you can go knit, slip 1, knit 4, slip 1, backwards knit 3, backwards knit 2 together. But you're going to join it just like I did on that one. That's just how you set it up. So you're just going to do that until you've got all of these first ones filled in all the way around. Okay, you can see I'm almost done going around here, and I've got a rectangle attached in between all of my triangles. I'm not quite finished here. I've still got 2 more stitches of my triangles left. So I'm going to do my last couple rows just so you can see how it finishes out. So remember, we're slip 1, knitting across, and then if you're going backwards knitting, you're going to do that back towards those triangle red stitches. And remember that the last one is going to be a backwards knit 2 together. Whoops, I split my yarn. So make sure your stitches aren't split. This yarn's a little splitty. I don't know if you'll have that much of a problem on sock yarn because it's thinner and everything. But every once in a while you split a stitch. You don't want to do this with the stitches split. Okay, so there is what you would do if you were doing it backwards. I'm actually much faster turning and purling, so that's what I do. Believe it or not, once I have this many stitches on my needles, it's not that fussy anymore with the double points. It might look it here because I'm on the video and I'm trying to hold my knitting flat. Usually I hold it more close to my body. But there, I've just joined the last ones and I'm done. And you'll either be looking at it this way if you're turning, or you'll be looking at it this way if you were working backwards. But again, just like last time, we're ending here and we're going to start at the top of the adjacent piece. So we're going to cut this yarn and we're going to add our yarn by picking up. And this part's going to, this row of triangles, this row of rectangles is going to be easier because these, remember, we had to start on the wrong side picking up and purling. Well, these we're going to start on the right side by picking up and knitting, and we pretty much all know how to do that. I think anyone that's going to be in this knit along probably has done that. But I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to go under 2 on the edge, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to, I was just checking where my little slip stitch edges are. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my tail. See that I just cut, so that's why it's a loose stitch, but I'm going to go under the 2 strands of that. And 5. And then I'm going to be working back and forth on those 5 stitches just like I did, only here I'll be joining them together on this end.